The uncanny resemblance. The research station on the distant planet of Kepler 442 bits was silent, except for the faint hum of machines. John Carter, a senior astrobiologist, had been working here for the past 5 years. His job was simple: study alien life forms and search for any signs of biological anomalies. But today, something was different. As he walked into the main laboratory, his assistant, Dr. Emily Hayes, looked at him with wide eyes. She was staring at the monitor, her fingers frozen over the keyboard. "John, you need to see this," she whispered. John frowned and moved closer. On the screen was a live feed from the station's security cameras. A woman was standing near the main entrance, staring directly into the camera. Her face was pale, her dark hair falling loosely over her shoulders. But what sent a chill down John's spine was the fact that he recognized her. It was impossible. His breath caught in his throat. "Lucy." Emily turned to him in confusion. "Who?" John didn't answer. He rushed to the entrance, his heart pounding. The doors slid open with a soft hiss, and there she was, standing just a few feet away. She looked exactly like his daughter, Lucy Carter. The same soft features, the same piercing blue eyes. But that couldn't be. His daughter had died 10 years ago in a tragic spaceship accident. The woman looked at him, confused. Who are you?" John took a cautious step forward. His mind was racing. "My name is John Carter. What's your name?" The woman hesitated. Her hands trembled as she hugged herself. I don't know." Emily, who had followed John, exchanged a glance with him. She could be suffering from amnesia. John stared at the woman. No, this wasn't just a coincidence. She looked too much like Lucy. But how was that possible? He tried again, his voice softer. "Do you remember anything at all? How did you get here?" She shook her head. I woke up in the forest. It was dark, and I felt lost." Her voice cracked. "I don't remember who I am." John felt a strange mix of emotions, fear, hope, and confusion all at once. "Come inside," he said. "We'll help you." A mystery begins. Inside the station, Emily ran a few medical scans while John sat across from the woman. She watched them with a wary expression, as if she didn't trust them. Emily looked at the results on her tablet. "Physically, she's fine. No injuries, no signs of trauma." John tapped his fingers on the table. He knew there was only one way to get answers. "I want to run a DNA test." Emily looked surprised. "You think?" "I just need to be sure." The woman seemed nervous but agreed. They took a small blood sample and started the test. It would take a few hours. John sat beside her, studying her carefully. "Is there anything at all, you remember?" The woman frowned. Flashes, strange images, a spaceship, a bright light, and then nothing. She looked at him desperately. "I feel like I'm missing something important." John clenched his fists. This was wrong. She looked exactly like Lucy. And the way she spoke, the way she moved, it was too familiar. But his daughter had died in deep space. There had been no survivors. So who was this woman? The DNA shock. Hours passed, and the station was eerily quiet. When the DNA test results finally came in, Emily's face turned pale. She looked at John with wide eyes. "John, you need to see this." John took the tablet and read the results. His vision blurred as his mind tried to process the information. DNA match, 99.9%. His heart stopped. It was her. This woman wasn't just a lookalike. She was Lucy. But that was impossible. John looked at her, his hands shaking. "Lucy." She blinked in confusion. "Who is Lucy?" John swallowed hard. "You." Silence filled the room. The woman stared at him, struggling to understand. But how? John didn't have an answer. His daughter had died 10 years ago. So how was she sitting right in front of him now? The DNA shock. John Carter stared at the DNA test results on the glowing screen. His heart pounded in his chest like a war drum. 99.9% match. The woman sitting across from him wasn't just a lookalike. She was Lucy. But that was impossible. Lucy Carter had died 10 years ago in a spaceship accident. There had been no survivors, no wreckage found, only silence. And yet here she was, breathing, confused, and very much alive. John's hands trembled as he set the tablet down. He looked up at the woman, his daughter, who was watching him with cautious eyes. "What?" she asked softly, sensing the shift in the air. John opened his mouth but couldn't find the words. How could he tell her? How could he explain something that made no sense? Emily Hayes, his assistant, exhaled sharply. "This isn't possible. Maybe there's an error." John shook his head. "There's no mistake." He turned to the woman. "Lucy, or whoever she was, listen to me. Your DNA matches mine." The woman's face twisted in confusion. "What does that mean?" "It means you're my daughter." His voice cracked. "But that can't be. Because my daughter, Lucy, died 10 years ago." The woman's eyes widened. She shook her head. No, that's not true." Emily leaned forward, her scientific mind struggling for logic. "Then who are you?" I don't know," she whispered. "I don't remember anything before waking up in the forest. But I know I'm not dead. I can't be." Her breathing became shallow, her hands shaking. John could see the panic creeping in. He wanted to comfort her, but he didn't even understand what was happening himself. He took a deep breath, trying to stay rational. "All right, let's go through this step by step. What do you remember? Anything at all?" She swallowed hard and closed her eyes. "I remember flashes, bright lights, floating, like I was weightless. But the memories are broken, like pieces of a puzzle that don't fit together." John exchanged a glance with Emily. That description, floating, bright lights, sounded eerily similar to reports of alien abductions. But no, that was ridiculous, wasn't it? Unraveling the impossible. John ran a hand through his hair, his mind spinning. "If you are Lucy, then where have you been all this time?" The woman shook her head. "I don't know." Emily crossed her arms. "We should scan her. Maybe there's something, an implant, foreign DNA, anything, that could explain this." John hesitated but nodded. They had to do something. They led the woman to the medical scanner, a sleek machine built to detect anomalies in organic beings. As she lay down on the scanning table, John's chest tightened. What if they found nothing? What if they found something? The machine hummed as it passed over her body. Data scrolled rapidly on the screen, analyzing her cellular structure, neural activity, and biometrics. Then, the screen beeped. Emily gasped. "John, look at this." John leaned over. His stomach dropped. There was something inside her brain. A small, unidentifiable foreign object, embedded deep within her neural cortex. It wasn't organic. It wasn't human. "What the hell is that?" John muttered. Emily zoomed in on the scan. "It's some kind of nano-device." John's blood ran cold. Nano-devices weren't uncommon. Advanced civilizations used them for medical procedures, even cybernetic enhancements. But this wasn't human-made. The structure, the composition, none of it matched Earth's technology. Lucy, or whoever she was, had something alien inside her. The woman sat up, looking between them. "What is it? What's wrong?" John hesitated. He didn't want to frighten her, but she needed to know. "There's something in your brain. A small foreign device. We don't know what it does yet." The color drained from her face. Her hands went to her head as if she could feel it. "What does that mean? Did someone put it there? Did I? Was I?" She couldn't finish her sentence, but John knew what she was thinking. Had she been taken? The missing years. John clenched his fists. He needed answers. He needed to know if this was really Lucy or something else pretending to be her. "Emily," he said, his voice low. "Can we extract it?" Emily bit her lip. "We don't know what it's connected to. If we remove it, it could kill her." The woman shivered. "No, don't take it out. Not yet." John studied her. "Do you trust me?" She hesitated, then nodded. "I think so." "Then let's find out the truth. Together." She exhaled shakily. "How?" John looked at the screen again. The nano device was unlike anything he had ever seen, but he knew where to start. "First, we checked the planetary records," he said. "If you woke up in the forest, that means you came from somewhere. Maybe there was a crash, a disturbance, something." Emily nodded. "We can scan for anomalies in the last 48 hours. John turned back to the woman. His daughter, maybe. He still wasn't sure. But one thing was clear. Someone, or something, had brought her back. And he was going to find out why. The silent witness. The research station was silent, except for the rhythmic hum of machines processing data. The air was thick with tension. John Carter sat in front of a glowing screen, his fingers drumming against the table. His mind raced as he stared at the scanned results of the woman who looked exactly like his daughter. The nano device lodged deep in her brain was a mystery, one that could be the key to explaining how she had returned from the dead. But the real question was, who put it there? Lucy, or whoever she was, sat across from him, shifting uncomfortably in her chair. Her fingers clenched the edge of the table, her knuckles white. "You said you'd check the planetary records," she murmured. "Did you find anything?" John inhaled sharply and turned the screen toward her. "We ran a scan for any unusual activity in the last 48 hours, and we found something." Emily, who had been working on the data, pointed at the screen. "A disturbance." Lucy leaned forward. The monitor displayed a map of the dense forest near the station. A glowing red pulse marked a location just a few kilometers away. "What is that?" Lucy asked. John's voice was grim. "A spatial anomaly," Emily clarified. "It wasn't a crash. No impact zone. No debris. It was something else. A localized energy spike, almost like a portal opening and closing." Lucy's throat tightened. "So, I didn't come from a ship." John shook his head. "No, it's like you were just placed there." The word sent a chill through the room. "The investigation begins." John stood up and grabbed his gear. "We're going to that site. If we're going to figure out what's happening, we need to see it with our own eyes." Lucy hesitated. "You really think we'll find something?" John met her gaze. "I don't know, but we need to try." Emily packed a scanning device, a pulse rifle, just in case, and a communication relay. "I don't like this," she muttered. "It feels like a trap." John agreed. But if it was a trap, they were already in it. The anomaly site. The journey to the anomaly site was tense. The thick alien jungle around them pulsed with strange bioluminescent plants. Shadows stretched unnaturally, as if the very fabric of reality had shifted. Lucy walked beside John, silent and lost in thought. She felt drawn to the location, like an invisible thread was pulling her forward. The closer they got, the louder the ringing in her ears became. When they reached the site, Emily stopped abruptly. "There," she whispered. In the clearing, the ground was burned. Circular, precise. The grass around it had been flattened, and the air smelled of static electricity. It was as if something had appeared here, and then vanished. John knelt and ran his fingers over the scorched earth. This wasn't natural. Emily activated the scanner. The device beeped rapidly, reading the energy signatures still lingering in the air. This isn't normal electromagnetic radiation," she murmured. "This is something else." Lucy shivered. "I was here, wasn't I?" John looked at her. "Yes." Lucy stepped forward, her heart pounding. Her fingers twitched as if something deep inside her remembered this place. And then, It happened. The awakening. A high-pitched frequency filled the air, piercing their ears. Lucy gasped and clutched her head, dropping to her knees. The sound wasn't just noise. It was a message. John grabbed her shoulders. "Lucy, what's happening?" Her eyes snapped open, wide with shock. Memories flooded her mind. Bright lights, voices speaking in a language she didn't understand. Cold metal against her skin. She gasped. I wasn't alone. John's stomach twisted. What? I saw others, she whispered, her voice shaking. Others like me. But they weren't human. Emily stiffened. Aliens. Lucy shook her head. Not exactly. They were changed, like they had once been human. But now, she trailed off, her breath uneven. John gritted his teeth. This wasn't just about Lucy anymore. There were others, and that meant whoever did this to her was still out there. The silent witness. Emily's scanner beeped furiously. The readings spiked off the charts. Something was here. John whipped around, his hand moving to his weapon. The jungle had gone unnaturally silent. No wind, no distant alien creatures. Then something moved. A figure stood at the edge of the clearing, half hidden in the shadows. John's heart skipped a beat. It was tall, humanoid, but wrong. Its skin was pale and stretched tight over its bones, its eyes too large, glowing faintly. It had the faint outline of something human, but it had been altered. A lump formed in Lucy's throat. I've seen it before, she whispered. John's grip on his weapon tightened. Who, or what is it? Lucy's eyes filled with terror. It was with me. In the light. Emily took a step back. Then why is it here? John's voice was grim. Because it remembers her. The creature tilted its head, as if listening. And then, it vanished. Not into the forest. Not into the shadows. It just disappeared. Emily cursed. Did it just? John exhaled, his mind racing. It wasn't just watching us. Lucy's voice was barely above a whisper. It was waiting. Silence. And then, John realized something that made his blood run cold. The nano-device in Lucy's brain. What if it wasn't just a tracker? What if it was a beacon? What if Lucy hadn't just escaped? What if she had been sent back? The forgotten planet. The jungle was too quiet. John Carter had spent years on alien worlds, but he had never felt this kind of unease before. The air was thick with tension, every sound muted as if the forest itself was holding its breath. Lucy stood frozen beside him, her hands clenched into fists. The strange humanoid creature that had been watching them was gone, but they all knew it wasn't really gone. It had simply stepped into the shadows of reality, waiting. John exhaled slowly. His pulse was hammering, but he forced himself to stay calm. Panic wouldn't help them now. Emily tightened her grip on the scanner. That thing wasn't just watching us. It was studying us. Lucy's voice was barely above a whisper. It knew me. John turned to her. What do you mean? She shivered. I remember it. She hesitated, as if afraid to say more. When I was in the light, when I was gone, it was there. John exchanged a glance with Emily. This was bigger than they had imagined. A trail to nowhere. John made a decision. We're heading back to the station. We need more data before we do anything else. But as they turned to leave, Lucy froze. She clutched her head, her knees buckling. Lucy. John caught her before she collapsed. Her eyes were wide, unfocused, like she was seeing something they couldn't. Emily ran a quick scan. Her neural activity is spiking. It's like. She stopped, staring at the screen. John's stomach twisted. Like what? Emily swallowed hard, like she's remembering something in real time. Lucy gasped. I see it. John gripped her shoulders. What do you see? Her lips parted, but the words weren't hers. The path is open. The return is inevitable. Emily paled. What the hell does that mean? Lucy blinked rapidly, the trance breaking. Her breathing was ragged, her body shaking. "I don't know. I don't." And then she looked at John with wide, terrified eyes. "I remember where I was." Silence. John felt his throat tighten. "Where?" Lucy swallowed. It wasn't a ship. It wasn't another world. It was something else. She squeezed her eyes shut, trying to force the words out. It was a place between places. Emily frowned. "What does that mean?" Lucy shuddered. "I think I was in a forgotten planet, a world that doesn't exist in normal space." John took a slow breath. "And now, you're back." Lucy nodded, her voice barely above a whisper. "But what if I wasn't supposed to come back alone?" The code in the stars. Back at the research station, the air was thick with tension. They replayed everything. Lucy's DNA match, the nano device, the anomaly site. But they were still missing something. Emily was at her console, running deeper scans on Lucy's brain implant. "Okay, so here's where things get really weird." John raised an eyebrow. It wasn't weird already. Emily ignored him and pointed to the screen. "The nano device. It's not just a tracker. It's broadcasting a signal." John's breath caught. "To where?" Emily hesitated. "It's not transmitting to anywhere in known space. But..." She pulled up a star map, adjusting the coordinates. "It's pointing to a location that doesn't exist." John narrowed his eyes. "That doesn't make sense." Emily shook her head. "No, it doesn't. But here's the thing. Our scanners don't show anything there. It's just empty." Lucy stared at the screen, something flickering in her expression. John noticed. "Lucy." She looked at him. "It's not empty. It's hidden." Emily exhaled. "Okay. Say that's true. How do we find it?" Lucy's voice was calm, but the weight of her words made John's skin crawl. "We don't. It finds us. The signal answers." For hours, they watched the data stream. And then, something changed. The station's warning lights flickered. The hum of the machines shifted to a strange, low frequency. The air felt heavy. And then, a response came. Emily's screen glitched, symbols appearing in patterns that made no sense. "John, you need to see this." John leaned in. "What am I looking at?" Emily's voice was quiet. "A message." Lucy exhaled shakily. "It's not just a message." John turned to her. She looked pale, her hands trembling. "It's a summoning. The forgotten planet reveals itself." The ground trembled. The stars outside the station's viewing window seemed to shift. The space beyond was moving. No, warping. John's breath hitched. "What the hell is happening?" Emily checked the readings. I think something is trying to pull us in." Lucy whispered, "It's them." John's pulse spiked. "Who?" Lucy turned to him, her eyes hollow, as if she already knew what was coming. "The ones who brought me back." Before John could respond, the space outside the station collapsed in on itself. And a planet, one that hadn't existed moments ago, appeared. It was massive, a dead, broken world, floating in the abyss of nothingness. Emily gasped. It was hidden this whole time. John clenched his jaw. And then, a signal came through. A voice, hollow, cold. "You have something that belongs to us." Silence. John looked at Lucy. Lucy looked at him. And deep down, they both knew they weren't getting out of this easily. The return of the lost ones. The air inside the research station had changed. It was heavier, thick with something invisible but suffocating, like a force pressing down on their chests, making every breath feel unnatural. John Carter stared at the massive forgotten planet that had appeared outside the station's viewing window. It hadn't been there moments ago. It wasn't supposed to exist. And yet it did. A voice had echoed through their communication system, cold and inhuman. "You have something that belongs to us." John's fingers clenched into fists. His mind raced, trying to piece together everything they had learned so far. Lucy's impossible return, the nano-device inside her, the humanoid figure in the forest, and now this hidden planet. Lucy stood beside him, her breathing uneven. She had remembered something. Something terrible. She turned to John, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't think I came back alone." A chill ran through him. "What do you mean?" Lucy swallowed hard. Her eyes flickered with uncertainty, as if she was afraid of her own thoughts. "When I was in that place, when I was gone, there were others." She hesitated. "I wasn't the only one they took." Emily looked at her sharply. "You mean other humans?" Lucy nodded slowly. "Not just humans. There were others. Some were like me. Some were changed." John exhaled. "Changed how?" Lucy's expression darkened, like the thing we saw in the jungle. Silence. Emily shifted uncomfortably. "So you're saying there are more of those things, and they might be on that planet?" Lucy didn't answer. She didn't have to. John knew the truth. That planet, whoever or whatever had hidden it from the universe before, was now calling them in. And they were running out of choices. The pull of the forgotten planet. The research station trembled. The lights flickered. Emily cursed, running to her console. "We're being pulled in." John moved to the main controls, but his fingers hesitated. If they tried to fight it, the station could be ripped apart. Lucy gripped his arm. "We have to go." John turned to her. "Why?" "We don't even know what's waiting for us down there." Lucy's blue eyes were filled with something between fear and uncertainty. "I do," she whispered. John clenched his jaw. "And?" Lucy's lips parted, and then she said something that sent ice through his veins. "They let me go for a reason." Emily's hands froze over the controls. "Wait. What?" Lucy inhaled shakily. "I don't know why, but I wasn't supposed to be the only one. There were others with me. But they didn't escape. They were left behind." She looked out the window at the planet growing closer. "And now they're calling them back." John felt his heart pound. "Them? Or you?" Lucy hesitated, then whispered, "Both." The station lurched violently as its trajectory shifted. The engines flickered in protest, but they had lost control. They were going down. Descent into the unknown. The forgotten planet grew massive in the viewport, its surface a swirling mix of dark blues and blacks. Emily gritted her teeth. "Brace yourselves." The station's emergency alarms blared as the gravitational pull strengthened. They were being drawn into a specific location, not just crashing randomly. John could see it now. A city. No, not a city. A graveyard. Massive structures, some resembling human architecture, others completely alien, were scattered across the landscape. It was a tomb of civilizations, and they were about to land right in the center of it, landing among the forgotten. The station shuddered violently as it entered the planet's atmosphere. Heat flared around the structure, but their shields barely held together. Then, a hard impact. The station trembled, metal groaning under pressure. But miraculously, they survived. For a moment, silence. Then the external scanners flickered. The words on the screen made Emily's stomach drop. "Life forms detected." John exhaled. That was fast. Emily checked the readings. "They're all around us." John turned to Lucy. "Are they the ones you remember?" Lucy looked pale. Her hands trembled. "I don't know." John grabbed his weapon. "We're not sitting around waiting for them to come knocking." Emily hesitated. "You want to go out there?" John nodded. "We don't have a choice." Lucy met his eyes. "I'll go too." John hesitated, but Lucy was already stepping toward the airlock. John sighed. She wasn't just part of this mystery. She was the key. The ones left behind. The air outside was thick, heavy. It smelled wrong. John, Lucy, and Emily stepped onto the surface of the planet, their weapons ready. The structures around them were massive, broken towers reaching toward the sky. And then they saw them. Figures moving through the shadows. Not human. Not fully alien either. The lost ones. Lucy's breath hitched. I know them. John tightened his grip on his weapon. What do you mean? Lucy took a shaky step forward. They were with me. Then one of the figures stepped into the dim light. John's blood ran cold. It was a man, or at least it had been. His skin was pale, almost translucent. His eyes were black voids, his limbs unnaturally elongated. But his face, Emily gasped. Lucy whispered, "Oh my God," because they all recognized him. He was Captain Elias Vance, a name that had been etched in history, a name from a ship that had disappeared 40 years ago, a ship that had been lost in the exact same region of space where Lucy had vanished. And he wasn't alone. Hundreds of them stood in the ruins, watching, waiting. John's grip tightened on his rifle. Lucy swallowed hard, looking at the once human captain. They didn't just take me. Her voice was barely audible. They've been taking people for decades. John exhaled. And now? Lucy looked at him, her eyes dark with realization. They're ready to return. Silence. And then Captain Elias Vance spoke, a voice that had not been heard for 40 years. Welcome home. The alien truth. John Carter's breath was shallow. His grip on his rifle tightened, but his mind screamed at him that no weapon could help him now. Hundreds of them stood in the ruins, watching, waiting. Their forms were twisted, their skin pale and stretched. Their eyes were bottomless pits of darkness, yet something inside them still felt human. And at the front, standing like a silent sentinel, was Captain Elias Vance, a man who had been declared dead 40 years ago, a man who had vanished just like Lucy. And now he had returned. John's heart pounded as the former captain of the Orion's Dawn took a slow step forward. His movements were precise, unnatural, like he was fighting something inside him. Welcome home, Elias Vance said. His voice wasn't just his own. It carried a resonance, an echo, a second layer, as if something else was speaking through him. Lucy inhaled sharply beside John. He's not alone. Emily's grip on her scanner was tight, her fingers trembling. This isn't just a distress call. They weren't waiting for us. John turned to her. Then what were they doing? Emily's voice dropped to a whisper. They were waiting for orders. The ones who were left behind. Lucy stepped forward, her gaze locked on Elias Vance. I remember you, she whispered. Elias tilted his head slightly. Do you? John tensed. Every instinct in him screamed that this was a trap. Lucy took another step, her eyes scanning the countless figures in the ruins. I wasn't the only one they took, she said, her voice shaking. You were there too. You never left. Elias exhaled slowly, his chest rising and falling in an eerie mechanical rhythm. We never could leave. Emily muttered under her breath. That's not comforting. John kept his weapon raised. Then why are you here now? If they took you, why bring you back? Elias met his gaze, his black eyes empty of all human emotion. Because they let us go. Lucy inhaled sharply. No. Elias nodded. Yes. Silence fell. John could feel the weight of it, pressing against his skull, crawling into his thoughts. Something was watching. Something was listening. Elias took another slow step forward. We were lost for so long. A place outside of time. A place that does not obey the rules of reality. They showed us everything. His lips twitched into something that almost resembled a smile. And now, we serve. Lucy's voice was hollow. You're not you anymore. Elias nodded. We are more than what we were. John had heard enough. Who are they? He demanded. What do they want? Elias didn't respond immediately. His gaze flickered to Lucy. They already have what they want. Lucy's breath caught. John's stomach dropped. No, John whispered. You mean? Elias exhaled. His voice was calm, detached, not fully human anymore. They don't need us anymore. John's pulse spiked. Then why are you all still here? Elias finally smiled, a cold, empty expression. To welcome the next ones. The truth hidden in the stars. The realization hit John like a bullet. This wasn't a rescue mission. This was a replacement mission. Lucy's hands were shaking. They let me go, because they already took others in my place. Elias nodded. The cycle continues. A balance must be maintained. Emily whispered, "This isn't abduction. This is a trade." John clenched his fists. His mind raced, trying to understand the endgame. Lucy was taken. She was held in a place that doesn't exist in normal space. But they brought her back. Because they had taken someone else. No, not just someone. Thousands, maybe millions. John's voice was rough. How long has this been happening? Elias tilted his head slightly. Since before the first human looked at the stars. John's stomach twisted. This wasn't new. This wasn't a one-time event. It had been happening for centuries. The call of the forgotten ones. Lucy's breathing grew uneven. The nano device in her head began to pulse. She fell to her knees, gripping her skull. Emily panicked. Her neural activity is spiking. We need to get her out of here. Elias watched with eerie calm. She is remembering. John stepped forward. Make it stop. Elias met his gaze. She will remember everything soon, and then she must choose. John's fists clenched. Choose what? Elias's voice was emotionless. To stay or to bring them home. John's stomach dropped. Lucy wasn't just one of the lost ones. She was the key to ending the cycle, or continuing it. Lucy gasped, her eyes flying open. And for the first time, they were not her eyes. They were something more. Something not human. And in a voice that wasn't fully her own, she whispered, "They're already here." The sky above them cracked. And the stars moved. The final stand. The sky above cracked like glass. The stars didn't just shine, they moved. John Carter could feel it in his bones, a distortion of reality itself. The planet beneath their feet trembled, and the ruins around them pulsed with a strange ancient energy. Lucy knelt on the ground, her breath ragged, her body trembling. But it wasn't fear that held her there. It was something inside her, something awakening. Her eyes, once blue, flickered with a shifting light, like the reflection of a dying star. "They're already here," she whispered. Elias Vance stood motionless. His black, hollow eyes watched her with an eerie calm. The others behind him, the lost ones, did not speak. They did not move. They were waiting. And that terrified John the most. The return of the architects. The ground split open. A massive crack ripped through the ruins, sending ancient stone and dust into the air. Emily staggered backward, gripping her scanner with shaking hands. "John, something's coming." John already knew. He could feel it. The air thickened. Gravity itself shifted. And then they arrived. From the sky, dark figures descended, not ships, not creatures, something else. They had no form, yet they existed. They had no faces, yet John knew they were watching. The air vibrated with their presence. Emily whispered in horror, "What the hell are they?" John had no words. But Lucy did. She stood, slowly, unnaturally, as if guided by an unseen force. Her voice was not just her own. It echoed, layered, as if spoken by 1,000 voices at once. "They are the architects." John's blood ran cold. That name. He had read about it once, buried in classified reports. A name whispered by long-dead civilizations. A name that had been erased from history. Emily shook her head. "No, that's impossible." Elias Vance smiled. "They have never left," he said simply. "The choice that must be made." The architects did not move. They simply were. But John could feel their intent. It wasn't anger. It wasn't violence. It was judgment. They had returned for Lucy. For all of them. John stepped forward, his voice firm despite the shaking inside him. "What do you want?" The air itself answered, not with words, with thought. A vision filled his mind. Humanity's place in the universe. The architects had been watching for millennia. They had seen species rise and fall. They had seen empires crumble to dust. And they had ensured balance. Lucy turned to John, her eyes glowing. They never take without giving. John's fists clenched. Giving what? Elias Vance answered. Knowledge. John's pulse spiked. Lucy continued. The ones they take, they show them things beyond human comprehension. They prepare them. And when they return, they are no longer the same. John shook his head. Then why take people at all? Why not just tell us the truth? Elias smiled sadly. Because you would never understand it. The words hung in the air like an unspoken warning. And then the architects moved. Not physically. Not in any way the human mind could comprehend. But space itself shifted, and suddenly, Lucy was standing between two realities. John reached for her. "Lucy, don't." She turned, her face calm. "I remember now." John's heart pounded. "What?" Her voice was soft. "Why they sent me back." Emily's fingers tightened around her weapon. "Lucy, you don't have to do this." Lucy smiled, a sad, knowing smile. "Yes, I do." The price of knowing. The architects had never been captors. They had never been conquerors. They had been observers. And judges. Every species had a moment in history where they reached the threshold of understanding. A moment where they could either evolve or vanish. This was humanity's moment. Lucy turned to John, tears in her glowing eyes. "They don't want to take anyone anymore." John's voice was hoarse. "Then what do they want?" Lucy took a step forward. "They want me to choose." John's stomach dropped. "Choose what?" Lucy exhaled. "Who stays?" Silence. The meaning of those words hit hard. The cycle had to continue. Someone had to go. But this time, the choice was humanity's. John looked at Elias Vance, at the hundreds of lost ones standing behind him. They were waiting for her answer. Lucy turned to John. "I can end it." John shook his head. "Lucy, no." She smiled sadly. "I have to." She turned to the architects. And she chose the final sacrifice. Light exploded outward. The planet shook. John staggered back, shielding his eyes. And when he looked up, the lost ones were gone. Elias Vance, the forgotten souls of history. The ruins stood empty. Emily's breath was shallow. What just happened? John turned to Lucy. But she was gone too. His chest tightened. "Lucy." Emily's scanner flickered. No life signs. No architects. No lost ones. Just silence. Aftermath. Days passed. The forgotten planet vanished from the star maps. The station logs wiped themselves. There was no evidence that anything had ever happened. But John remembered. He stood alone in the research station, staring at the stars. And then, a whisper. Faint, gentle, familiar. "I chose you." John closed his eyes. A tear slid down his cheek, and in his heart he knew. Lucy hadn't died. She had become something more. And she was still out there, watching, waiting, ensuring that humanity would never be lost again. The end.